everyone. Welcome
Hey
to the
everyone,
Cuttle live stream. I'm Toby.
And I'm Ryan.
I'm Federico.
I don't know how to point
Yeah.
like through the screen.
Oh wait. Oh no. There.
Yeah, that's how you point. Yeah, so today we have a couple projects from the community that we're going to share, and Ryan and I visited a high school last week, and we have some photos that we were going to share. And then after that, Federico is going to be showing some work that he's been doing, I guess, over several years, making mechanical automata. And a lot of them are laser cut. And there's actually one of them that we just released as a new template
This little guy.
that is available in the Cuttle templates area of the website. So we'll be talking about all that stuff.
Then we'll take some questions from you all. Anyone who's here and wants to.
Yeah, we have the chat open, so if you have any questions, please just type them in the chat. So these are some projects that I collected from this week. This one is a living hinge that was made by Mr. Benoit, who is the teacher that we met last Friday, and I guess maybe made in collaboration with students in his class. So it looks like the way this works is you can sort of change the sizing of it and like the spacing of these things. So what is a living hinge? It's one of these things where you sort of cut a bunch of slits into something like wood, or you can do it, I guess, in acrylic or Delrin. You can do it in lots of different materials, but then it takes a rigid material, and because of all these slits, it makes it able to bend.
Yeah. So I guess you wouldn't need. So like it makes the amount of material that needs to bend smaller, and I guess and it puts like a slight space between the materials so that when you bend it doesn't doesn't immediately hit itself. So yeah, so you can make like curved. I've seen people use this to make like curved boxes with like rounded corners and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he showed us in the class somebody made like a heart box or something maybe with this technique. Do you know anything about living hinges? I haven't actually played with them too much. Federico, have you played with living hinges?
I played a little bit with them. In fact, the project that we're going to talk about today has a sort of living hinge as a spring.
Cool.
But yeah, I guess the concept is what Brian was saying. You sort of spread out the bending over many different sections of the material.
This was another parametric project shared by Mr. Benoit, and the idea is that, yeah, it's cut out of, I guess, paper or cardstock, and then you can change the dimensions of it, and it's got this like triangle that folds in and glue tabs and a message that you can write.
It's cool how the handles fit into each other. So
Like that.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's an elegant object feature.
There were some snowflakes shared by Paul Shercliffe, who I believe is a teacher or STEM educator person. I know that we've replied back and forth on Twitter So these were made with the latest Snowflake template that we released last week. That's this one. Maybe while we're here, I can show so the idea of this, if you didn't see it last week, is that you can type in a name and then it gets replicated everywhere, and you can change the font. So Federico actually was saying this luxurious script
Oh, wow.
is a good one.
That looks very snowflakey.
Anyway, the new feature is that I added this rotation parameter that lets you sort of change the look a little bit. And this was important for, so like, if I reset that, the names that have descenders, like a Y that goes below the baseline, were getting a little messy. And so it seemed like a good idea to add, a little bit of being able to adjust the rotation to maybe clear those out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another update on this one is that it's performing a lot faster than the original release. I made some changes where I'm using essentially there's a line that's being controlled by the parameters, and then I do a text along path in order to fit the name onto it. And that's like sort of different, like the previous way I was doing it, I had like sort of a custom modifier and stuff like that in order to get the sizing right. But this works well. And
I just assumed you were using text within box before.
I thought about that. See, the thing is, you want the baseline to be like exactly where you want it.
Yeah, where text in box wouldn't do that.
Yeah. So it's like I want this to be right on a certain baseline, but I just want to be able to control the size of it, because part of the idea was that I thought you should be able to set like the diameter of the whole thing. So it's like I want it to be, approximately 3 inches in diameter, and then like it would just be that size. Anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good trick for making scaled, like specifically scaled text that isn't necessarily that's on a like this.
That's on a certain
on
baseline.
A specific baseline.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of cool projects that were shared in the Discord this week. Brian Wente shared this. I guess these are coasters for a specific cabin trip, and they each have a different name on them. And Brian was saying in the chat that these sprinkles were done using his spray. What's it called? Spray paint mod? Paint splatter paint.
Something like that. Yeah, it's like paint splatter or something like that. But like, it's. I was noticing that those were randomized. Yeah,
so I think my guess is that these were made using a tile repeat where you customize the repetition so that you can have different name on each one.
Mm-hmm.
And when you use customized repetitions, it will do a different
if you use random in like each so normally if you didn't use a customized repetition, each copy would be the same, but if you use random, like it'll generate different random values or like different. So if you did like random rotations or something like that, you'll get a different random rotation for every copy.
It's such a neat subtle feature on those coasters. Like you don't see it at first, but then each one is going to be different because of the sprinkle.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a name, but it's very subtle and cool.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. Like you're making a bunch of copies of this thing. There's really no, there's no like if it's all generated like randomly, then there's really no like extra work to making each one slightly different. So you might as well.
A cute ornament that was made, and apparently the misspelling of Mary is on
Intentional.
purpose. But yeah, this looks like some wood and acrylic that's etched. Perhaps a sandwich, or maybe there's just a layer of acrylic underneath a layer of wood.
It looks like bamboo.
Yeah, cut in
Oh,
bamboo.
yeah.
You
Nice.
were right.
Little stars on the acrylic are cool.
Yeah. And then someone else on the Discord suggested, oh, it might be cool to edge light this because then that would make the etched parts in the acrylic glow. This one I thought was really cool. So this
Yeah, this one's pretty
shared by
amazing.
Glyphon is, so it was a knife. It is a knife that's sharp enough to cleanly cut a tomato. There it is with some scale. And this was all made with laser cutting, including the blade. So apparently, Glyphon sent out the blade design to the service called Send Cut Send, which I haven't used yet, but I've heard a lot of good things. So they're like a mail order. You've used it?
Pretty cool.
What'd you cut?
I cut some brackets for some of the project, but I found it was like surprisingly affordable.
Mm-hmm.
I cut some sheet metal brackets out of like 16 gauge steel. They were about like 4 by 6 overall, and it was roughly like $4.50 or $5 per bracket.
Cool.
And yeah, it was really nice.
So I guess the way, oh, sorry, what were you saying?
The only person who recommended it was Charlie Mama. Remember the guy who makes these like really elaborate things out of sheet metal that are like riveted together.
Oh, right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Moki's saying that Federico's mic sounds really quiet. I wonder if
I turned up the mic.
that's our mic though.
Oh,
So
shoot.
I think maybe we need to add one for.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, maybe we should just go to. You want to just enable the guest video and
Yeah.
get rid of that one? Okay.
I think we might have. Can you try saying something, Federico?
Yeah, I hope
Okay.
that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah. Okay.
People in the chat, is that better? Sorry about that. We last minute we put Federico in his own little cloud, but I feel like I might have like turned off his
Yeah.
audio in so doing. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we forgot
We've
to add
confirmed that
audio.
that's
Okay,
better.
Well.
Sorry.
Love the cloud, but getting some sound.
But yeah, like things that I never thought would be made with Cuttle, but that's really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, this send cut send, you upload a file that you want them to cut out of metal, and you tell them what kind of metal you want, whether aluminum or what, steel and all sorts of things, and you tell them what thickness you want, and then they cut it and send it to you.
They say what type of. I mean, I assume this is steel. But
Yeah, so I asked, what it was.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
stainless.
7mm stainless steel. And then, it was sharpened, I guess, on a belt grinder. And then 3 layers of wood on each side. And he said that the nice thing about this is that you could match all of the, all of these layers of the sandwich perfectly, and you could put the holes exactly where you wanted them. And then I guess the idea is that he's going to be selling these at craft fairs, and normally a knife blank is $10 and perhaps not that great, but using this, he can have knife blanks for under $2 each. And they're totally custom shaped. So that's pretty cool. This super inventive idea. I really like this.
Yeah, I should look into this like service, because that's sort of a material that you wouldn't be able to cut on a home, sort of like a Glowforge or like a lower power laser cutter. So, but it sounds like it's pretty economical.
Yeah, I want to try it. I want to make like things that are. So the other thing that they actually document on their site is that you can, if you can essentially make perforations in the metal with like sort of little, almost slits, sort of little pill shapes, little thin pill shapes.
Yeah.
And then you can then bend the metal by hand.
Right.
You don't even need a special tool for it. And so that would, I think, be really fun, doing like sort of origami kind of designs out of metal.
I can already think of a use case.
All right. A few other projects from the community this week. More snowflakes. These were done on a Cricut with a gel pen on, I guess, white on black cardstock. Came out very nice. And then this was a cute project. It's a stand for holding these tiles. And apparently it's parametric to the slot thickness, so that these things can slot together no matter what material thickness you're using. And the rest of it is not parametric, which is totally great. Like, I feel like, you don't have to make things parametric, but then when you want to be able to, I got some other material is a slightly different thickness, then you can have your parameter for that one thing that you actually need to vary on each iteration that you're cutting this.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily need to go wild with the
Right.
parameterization.
Yeah.
Like, you just do it where you need to vary something. That's really.
Yeah, I think there's a nice middle ground to find with that. I've gone kind of wild with some projects that I'm like, I'm going to make the whole thing parametric, and then I only make like 2 versions out of it. So yeah, there's a moderation that can be used here.
Yeah, I mean, the parameters, like the intention is for it to be, Cuttle, like, it's supposed to save you time. Like, so if you're going to be, iterating a design 5 or 6 times, like you really do, or more, you really do want the parameters so that you can quickly try out those designs without having to like sort of manually redo everything. But if you're making just like a one-off thing, I mean, don't bother with the parameters. The whole point of Cuttle is it's flexible, so you can either be just using it as a pure manual drawing program, or you can be really parameterizing your designs because you're trying to save time in the long run.
Yeah, or if you do something manually, like for example, like this one, you add the slot and then you're just trying out a bunch of different things. Then maybe you're thinking like, maybe it would be easier if instead of going into this shape and changing the scale, I just put a make a project parameter and stick it in there, and then you just have easier access to that.
Right, exactly. You can parameterize it after the fact, which is also, I think, a really good strategy. All right. Well, I think those are the projects from the community that I had queued up. So I was thinking next we could talk about this new template that is on the, here, I'll actually pull it up on the, so in the template section, there's now this one that we launched a couple hours ago, the Walking Man, and you can make your own little kinetic toy. And the basically the only parameter that you should pay attention to is material thickness. So it's it's sort of tuned to a particular material thickness. So all you have to do is measure your material and then put in whatever that material thickness is, and then there's a wood cut that you'd cut out of your plywood. There's a figure that you'd cut from paper, and then there's a 5-minute assembly video where Federico shows you the step-by-step on how to actually put it together. Did I get that right?
Yeah, perfect. And this is that's an example of just using a parameter in one section instead of like doing the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other callback there is that we were talking about that curve bending.
Oh, right, the living hinge.
The living hinge, which is used on these as a spring. That you can see it there. It's a series of cuts that create that kind of flexibility for the character to kind of like bob up and down and sideways a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like add so much more life to it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what gives it character.
Yeah, he sort of bounces.
Yeah, I think he has a little kind of funny bounce. Yeah, I guess the background with that project is that some time ago I took there was a challenge that someone issued. They call it Make Vember. And the idea was to make something every day during the month of November. And I started with a couple of these like sort of kinetic figures, and then kind of posted them on Twitter and Instagram, and people really liked them. And so I carried on like the whole month, like trying to make one a day. And I feel like I hit a certain aesthetic that I kind of like. And then let me show you so I did one a day. So here you can see cool. the progression. And the funny thing is that I happen to have these little wooden blocks. I had them from another project, but they became kind of like the basis for each one of them. And so, I mean, the slit is not necessary most of the time. And the other thing I found is that like I decided to just stick with like no digital tools. And so I used the popsicle sticks, and the wire was from paper clips. Mm-hmm. And then on November 6th, I made this like little walking character. So you can see that the spring is more like a little piece of wire stuck through its belly. And I feel like that was extremely popular. I think a lot of people really liked the feel of that character. And so there were like, there were a lot of other versions that people made. So here are like, I feel like some of them were like less successful. This little dragon is like really sad, in my opinion.
Oh, that's nice. Can I ask about the, so this is a particular kind of mechanism. I believe this is called a cam, is that right?
Yeah, there are cams at the bottom right here. So
the idea is that you have a thing that spins, and then around the axle of the thing that's spinning, it's offset. Exactly. And so then that goes up and or it goes sort of in a circle around the axle, and then you can use that to sort of create motion, and in particular, I guess, linear motion if you sort of restrict it like you're doing here. Is that like how you think about it?
That's what I was going for, yeah. Yeah, so a simple cam, like the simplest one would be like an offset circle, and then that creates the up and down. And so I was trying to create a sort of like wave motion on the character.
Because
but
each cam,
semi-successful.
you've sort of, each one is out of phase, and that's how you're able to have each one go up and down at different times.
Yeah, it's actually, I have it right here. I can show you can give you a better view of the original. So yeah, so each cam is exactly out of phase a little bit. This view is good. So the idea is that they would be going up and down in a sort of wavy fashion.
Yeah, I see. So it's so you drilled a hole in like an offset hole in this in the dowels there. So then those kind of like you have the wire that's wrapping around those, and that kind of like pushes the like the wires up and down.
Yeah. So yeah, the dowels were a little offset hole, and then I threaded it through. Like this crank is basically straight all the way through. So. So,
And then those
so
are
that made the assembly easy.
So those are the center wire is glued onto like the cams are glued onto the center wire somehow.
Yeah, with a little drop of super glue just to hold them in place. I think part of the reason this is not entirely successful with the Dragon is that the connection point with the Dragon right here, it's a little loose. There's like some play.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, you can see it here. I guess the profile doesn't look that terrible.
So it's kind of like some of the wires are kind of slipping inside of that connection point.
Yeah.
It's
Going back
really
to the
cute,
others
though.
here real quick. Yeah, so I think I hit on this like sort of like black paper and kind of nice background aesthetic that I kind of enjoyed. And of course, some of them are like way simpler than others. But as a group, they make like a fun collection.
Oh my gosh, though.
I think this is probably my favorite, the two like spider characters.
Yeah, wow.
Because there is something about the way the paper flexes that makes them very animated, very organic.
How does that one work? Like, so I mean, I see that you're spinning something with your finger, and then you have these like two seesaws that are going back and forth. Is that something you can describe?
Yeah, I can show you that one. So the logic with this one, maybe easier to see here, is that
I didn't see that.
the crank has it moves around, and then this slot, whenever it hits the up or down, it moves these up or down. It's more visible from there. And then because it's the same crank, then it's it's 180 degrees off phase to get the one going up and the other one going down.
So it's the same idea, like this out of phase cam kind of thing, or is it called something different when it's in this configuration?
I guess in this case you call it a crank. So yeah, that's the logic there. So this is an example of like one where I wanted to make this kind of seesaw mechanism, And I built it, and then I was like, what do I put on it to make it interesting? And so I started just kind of gluing pieces of paper, and then I found this kind of interesting motion, like because it goes kind of like pointing to the left and to the right,
Yeah.
and that's just like a consequence of like using this kind of flexible material here. And I think that's what gives them so much character.
Yeah, they're like doing like a mating dance or something.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I think this is the little rabbit or hare is very ambitious because I had these. I had the up and down cam that moves the hare, and then I wanted to add like a sort of background with the grass, and so that's powered by this little rubber belt made out of a rubber band. So I think it has a lot going on.
I see. So the grass is on a conveyor belt. It's like one of those sushi restaurants where the grass is going around the middle part.
I see. So that's like glued onto the belt itself, and then that's also that's being turned. So how are you translating the crank motion into like you're sort of rotating you're sort of rotating it 90 degrees.
Right. So the rubber bands decay a lot. So I didn't prepare one, but I can I can show you this.
I see. So
So here is that one.
Mm-hmm.
So the rubber band was like threaded on these, the bottom rubber band. So it threads on that one because this one, still rotates fully. And then it kind of X's around these bottom ones.
I see.
And that's what moves these around. And then these translate the rotation to this top little card. So it was just like a sort of unusual use of belt.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to see here, but you can see how there's a rubber band here.
Yeah.
And it kind of curls around this one and then goes back to the other one in a sort of X configuration. This one is super simple. Like, see, there's a belt in the back in an X.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of similar to that.
The X makes it reverse direction, like that's why they're going.
Yeah, the X makes them rotate opposite. This is a little triangular cam.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it's called a Scotch yoke, which it's a similar kind of idea, translating circular motion to up and down, or to linear.
Basically, just taking the Y component of that rotation. So it's creating like a sinusoid function, sine motion.
And then this is this one is very simple. It's just I can show you the back of that one.
Is it another seesaw, or is it a little bit different?
It's a little different. Let me see if I can find it in this pile of things. Oh, there we go. It has a more elaborate. Well, it's a simpler implementation, I guess. So this is the up and down. Here's the crab. Mm-hmm. What creates the up and down is this linkage.
Oh, okay.
And then the linkage translates the up and down to the seesaw.
So that one has a pivot, so it's then moving both the claws, and you have like the wires to constrain.
The wires constrain that. There's like a sort of it's a seesaw, but then the motion is on only one side. So.
I love the curled paper for the crab eyes too.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. Paper is really useful. Like it can do a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
I really like the octopus.
What is even going on there? How is the tentacle even working? I don't.
The octopus is it's a similar like seesaw mechanism. So the main mechanism here is still this. Let me see. It's just like this one I implemented a little easier. What connects the up and down crank to the seesaw is this piece rather than a piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs more sort of freedom of motion.
Okay.
But then that up and down has this paper linkage, which is that piece, and that's what hitting the tentacle.
And you bent it in half to give it more strength, so it has like it's kind of like a triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you?
Yeah, because
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It was easier to do that piece of paper right there than a piece of wood. And then I could glue it to the tentacle.
I was going to ask if you had the octopus in mind when you made this mechanism, or did you like make the mechanism and then figure out what you were going to do with it?
I had the octopus in mind, yeah.
Okay.
I started with the idea of like, I think it'd be funny to have an octopus with a top hat. And then I just figured out a way to get that motion for the up and down. And I essentially copied the seesaw mechanism from a previous one. I guess we can finish looking at these. It's another walking character. And this is an example of those, it's called a crown pulley, sorry, which is a kind of interesting way which a belt will stay on a pulley that is shaped like with a higher center section.
Yeah, you would think you would need to do it opposite, but somehow this works.
Yeah, as long as the pulley is a belt, so like a flat section, it wants to stay in the center. So that was like that. This is also clamps at the bottom, plus a crank for the hand. This one is fairly elaborate. It's like
Oh wow!
I had the idea of a snapping turtle, and I wanted it to snap, and so I figured out the mechanism for that.
Is it a spring somehow?
It's a rubber band, yeah.
Oh.
I can show you that one. Got a number of rubber bands here, so rubber bands decay, so this one broke. But maybe I can fix it real quick. No, I should probably just get another one. But the idea here is that the rubber band is hooked between these two, so that's always forcing this section towards the front. And then what the crank does is that it pulls it back, and then here it releases and it goes forward. And then when it comes back around, it catches again, pulls it back, and then on the release it goes forward. And then to get the mouth movement, let's see if I can see. So when it goes back, this kind of somewhat stiff piece of paper pulls this up, and forward it constrains it, so you can see the.
Wow. Yeah, that's really because so the paper is actually and it's sort of it needs to be bent around the piece of wood to have that action.
Yeah, I kind of have it like kind of wrap around there, but it still has a little stiffness because I doubled it up.
I mean,
And
it's
that's
sort
what
of like a
creates this.
linkage, right? But like, does the paper need to be able to, like, if it were wood instead of paper or wire instead of paper, would it not work in this case?
I think it would work. I think
Okay.
it was just really easy to make here because I only glued the piece of paper down and connected it to that instead of having to create like another hole for wire and connect it.
Yeah, it's a lot
Like
simpler.
a little simpler in that case. That's one of those things where like I made these mostly, in a few hours. So I was like improvising a lot. This one is also like a seesaw with rubber bands to pull it down.
Oh.
Um,
This is so cute.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I love the self-referential part of the
Yeah.
character who's
yeah.
doing their own,
Uh-huh.
powering their own
Their own cranking.
automaton.
Yeah, I like how you took yourself out of the frame too, so that it especially looks that way.
With a little stick. These one these are like bellows. There's a bit of air that comes up to hit the spider.
So it's blowing air somewhere?
It's blowing air, yeah.
Is there like a hole under the spider that's blowing it up?
Yeah, you can sort of see the hole right there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very tiny hole. I guess you need it to be tiny so it like makes more pressure? Or is that?
Yeah. Here's that one. So yeah, I guess with the small hole that I got like a good stream coming out of that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so this is paper. And it's not a perfect balance because the intake is the same hole.
Right.
But it does the trick for a little spider. This one is based on a mechanism for windshield wipers.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give it some character, of course. And then this is also a bellows. But then these two air holes are what moves the
Wow.
little pinwheels.
Uh-huh.
So I gave it two outlets. This was my this was my second time making bellows, so I think I did a better job with this one.
That's so silly.
Yeah, it's fairly effective, that little stream you get out of that tiny hole. I think this one is a little stiff. But
Yeah, I'd imagine you kind of have to get it lined up really well.
yeah, it kind of has to line up right there. Because this is all kind of bent out of shape. And
Wow.
then this final one. That one was very simple, just like the cranks also out of phase, just pulling the fingers. So yeah, these were very popular, and then other people made like other versions out of it, mostly of the walking character. Somehow that one is the one that hit the most people, or like it resonated with a lot of people for making their own versions. And so that's why I kind of wanted to try and make a simpler kind of replicable one, that would be laser cut. Because I realized that I tried teaching classes for making this kind of thing, and I realized that like especially bending wire takes a fair amount of skill, or like if people are not familiar, is not readily understandable how to like, bend this thing in this three-dimensional way that works. And so I started like, when I was teaching more, I was trying to make little kits that would get people like halfway there. And so that was the incentive for like creating this one in Cuttle, especially because I designed one previous version, but like I wanted the fit to be really nice because the thickness of the material affects a number of things. So it affects the fit of these blocks. So when you assemble it, it should like snap nicely. But it also affects that this rotational element here relies on this hole being sized to the thickness of the material.
Yeah.
Because essentially this square section needs to fit in that circle. To do that, and then similarly with this one, I mean the circle is a bit bigger in this case to give it more movement, but it also affects, the thickness of the material is affected by that. And then the last one is attaching that to the crank. It's nice that this square fits nicely with the thickness of the material.
So you have a material thickness parameter, and then that's controlling both the finger joints making the box, and then also this like S curve thing. The sort of the profile thickness of that is the same as the material thickness, so that it has a square profile the whole way through. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And one thing that I simplified in this one that my previous version was put it down here. So this is the previous version I made, and then you can see that that crank in the middle has a it's square rather than rounded.
The S
and
part.
then the weight. Yeah, the S part. And then the way the feet are attached to it was with like a little cylinder made out of paper. And so this is the specific improvement on this new one, because let me show you. Oh, so it's attached with those little wooden pieces.
Little pedals.
Assemble it real quick. Little pedals, exactly. And so these corners are rounded because I wanted to be able to insert those in there. Pull it up.
Yeah, so you can just
to thread it through.
So yeah, thread it through, and then kind of have it sort of stay in there. So I figured that would be a nice simplification for the build process. So that way, the only thing you have to glue is the feet to that, and then there is like a sort of reinforcement, this little triangle on the ankle. Kind of maintains this sort of right angle here. Like what happens if you don't do that is that at this point, if there wasn't that enforced right angle, then it would bend up a little bit, and so it would create a sort of this kind of weird unnatural motion of the foot. Like it would bend way forward.
His ankle would be way too flexible, and then it would mess up his walk.
Yeah, so that's the reason to do that, to add that sort of extra fiddly gluing there.
Yeah, so this makes it really easy for somebody to cut this out and be sure that they're gonna get the same action, because like there's less pieces or I guess the pieces are all sort of like I guess pre-sized to
Yeah,
work.
like precise for you. I also added this little line here, which is the marker for where the spring gets glued.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think that's the that's the general overview of that.
Cool.
Are there any questions?
Thanks. Yeah, if there are any questions on the YouTube, you can leave them in the chat.
And yeah, go check out the templates section on Cuttle XYZ if you want to make one of your own.
Yeah, I'm excited to try making one. Yeah, Federico just published it this afternoon. I haven't tried cutting one yet. Can I ask, Federico, did you, so the November automata that you showed, how much experience did you have before that making those kinds of mechanisms, or like sort of where did you pick up those techniques?
I had a little bit of experience making like stuff out of paper. I did a lot of there's this guy, Rob Ives, who publishes a lot of like cool kind of mechanical stuff. And so I made a number of his models. Then I also I found this book, like I'll show you my previous experience a little bit. I found this book called Karakuri. It's like Japanese for mechanical models. Mm-hmm. And so this book had this like paper craft with some basic mechanisms.
That looks fun. Are they like folding patterns to make those?
Yeah, so the book comes with this folding. I mean, it comes with the paper like pre-cut, like die cut. This is what the book looks like. So the back of the book has has all these models that are like printed and die cut, so you can like take them out and assemble them. But the funny thing, which is interesting, is that I got the book like used, and then they had taken all these models out of the book. But I thought they were like a really great basic set of movements, and so I started replicating them just with foam core and paper tubes and like sticks. And so when I did this, I just set out to like replicate each one of the movements, but with like, cheapo, simple materials.
Yeah.
And so here are the cams, and then this is just like plastic from a, bottle. The tube is a rolled up piece of paper.
That's a fun one.
And just like little chunks of foam core. And this is like probably the simplest thing you can make with the bamboo skewer, popsicle stick, and dowel. This one is perhaps a bit more complicated. But, I mean, cutting the gears is labor intensive.
Though I feel like gears, like, to my mind, maybe it's because I had Lego gears when I was a kid, but like gears like make a lot of sense. But then like the cams and the cranks feel like there's so much room for creativity, or like that you were able to make the seesaw mechanism, and like there's I don't know, that seems like converting like something that's this very like gears is just like smooth motion to smooth motion,
right?
But then these other things, it's the smooth motion that you're turning with your hand is turning into all these different kinds of mechanisms, and I feel like that's the magical part for me seeing this.
Yeah, this is the Geneva stuff that Brian went to.
Oh yeah,
we were looking at it last time, but this is the foam core version of that. But yeah, I think there's a special magic to like getting, Brian was saying, converting the circular motion into that kind of sinusoidal movement. When you're like I think that also adds a lot of the kind of smooth organic sense to these models. You're gonna like
Yeah.
in the way the sign function is like important for when you're coding animations and things like that. I think this is the kind of mechanical version of that too.
Yeah, it's cool how that all just comes from it comes from the circular motion, and then it gives because it's all coming from a circle, it kind of like the rest of the motions that come from that all look very natural, because they're all kind of like a variation on a sine function, or maybe a sine function with I mean, I guess you can do different things, like some of them had sort of or like a sine function that would go back, and you can chop off the end, like the top and the bottom or something like that.
Yeah, because like at the extremes of the function, like you get like really fast movement and then slow movement. I think a lot of the ways in which like these behave kind of depend on that.
Right. Yeah, where you can see like the sort of like the seesaw motion is still like a sine like rotation, so it's kind of moving back and forth and slowing down at the ends, but then you have like the two arms, and it's kind of like it ends up sort of chopping it up and offsetting it in a way that like kind of makes it masks the original motion, but it still looks natural.
There, we managed to do the nerdy part at the end.
I'll ask one final question. We haven't talked about this yet, but I know that you met with the French school that's doing the kinetic. How's that going? Is there anything you can share about that project?
But I haven't made anything in particular, but we were talking about using Cuttle to make some templates. That would be like an extension of these other templates I made before.
Like the linkage ones? So I guess
yeah, like the paper linkage.
The background here is that Cuttle is starting to be used in schools, I guess all over the world, because there's a school in France that reached out to us and to Federico about developing a short curriculum, like, what did they say, like 8 classes or 12 classes to make mechanical automata using some of these techniques that Federico's been working on and teaching. So I don't know. It sounds super exciting, and like I think there might be more developments on that in the first half of next year.
Sounds like a pretty ideal sort of like student project. There's like a lot to teach there. You could go through all of the different like ways that you can transform motion into like all of the different sort of like cams and pulleys and like springs and all this stuff, and then sort of set the students on like take all of those and like combine them into something.
Sorry, I didn't find the reference, but I think that like a lot of teachers have like gravitated towards this kind of thing because it has an interesting mix of like mechanical sort of stem-like parts to it, but then you can like add kind of aesthetic elements, and so it hits that middle point between like arts and engineering a little bit, and it's like it feels playful while you're kind of trying to grasp these concepts of how to make an object work and all the constraints of the different materials and things like that.
Yeah, super exciting. All right, well, I think we're at about an hour, so I think we should close it off there. But thank you again, Federico, for sharing your work on the stream. And thank you everyone who tuned in.
Super cool.
And we're off for the rest of the year for the live streaming for our winter break, but we'll be back in January and we'll be posting, I guess, on Discord and the newsletter with whatever the scheduling will be for that. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Happy holidays, everyone.